Woo boy! Literally one of the reasons why I bought my first copy of Ableton Live was beatrepeat. In fact, I really wanted to do that cool Aphex Twin square pusher type shit. You know, that intelligent dance music shit. The standard issue. I want to get into electronic music, but not the commercial bullshit starter pack type beat. And yeah, I really thought that I would select whatever drum loop I found, slap beatrepeat on, and magically get, you know, incredibly complex drum breaks, which is of course not the case, as I found out very soon. But the good news is that, well, I found out that I was using beatrepeat wrong all these years. In fact, the real way to use it is to actually stack them either in series or in parallel. Let me just show you. All right, so I have a drum beat over here. This is what it sounds like, dry with no effects. If we go into the browser and look for beatrepeat, we're gonna find it right here. So by default, you have an interval value of 1 bar. That means that this effect is gonna basically repeat every 1 bar. Second thing that we're gonna have a look at is offset. So as you can see, as I turn the knob up, the offset value decides where the effect should start. If it's all the way down, it starts at the very beginning of the bar. Well, in this case, the 1 bar. Obviously, if I set 2 bars, it's gonna start at the very beginning of the very first bar, and so forth and so on. The grid obviously decides the time division in which the repetition is gonna occur. You have variation, but we're gonna have a look at it a bit later. The one thing that we're gonna have a look at is gate right now. So the gate basically decides the duration of the effect itself. So just to have a little listen as what it sounds like in a very simple setup, this is what it sounds like when it's repeating the first 16th note at the beginning of every bar. Okay, so a couple things are happening right now. First of all, the dry signal and the wet signal are playing at the same time. This is because we selected the mix tab. If on the other hand, we press the int button, which is insert, basically we're gonna hear the normal beat, and then when the repetition happens, we only hear the repetition. It's a bit cleaner. If we press on the gate button, on the other hand, we only listen to the repetition. There you go. Now, moving on, we have this knob called variation. So basically this introduces a bit of variation in the repetition. So it might insert some different grid values. Let's have a listen. There you go. And it can get a bit extreme. You can select no triplets, so you would get something like 1/8, 1/16, and 1/32, 1/4, but you wouldn't get any of these, you know, 1/24 or 1/12 or 1/6 or 1/3 values. Then you have this particular drop-down menu, which honestly I'm not really sure what it does. I think this decides with which frequency you get a variation. So with trigger, you get it on the trigger. With auto, you get it probably on a grid value that is basically set over here. So it's basically the same grid value that you find here. So if you select a grid value of 1/16, every 1/16 you get a variation. That's pretty much what I think it does. And then you have 1/4 and 1/8 or 1/16. So basically if I select this, every 1/8 you get a variation. It's a bit hard to hear it this way. Yeah, there you go. There you go. If I turn the gate up, so that's pretty interesting. Also, you have a filter. So it's worth mentioning that the filter only works on the affected part of the sound, basically. And if we go back to int and maybe turn the gate down a little bit, and maybe turn the offset in such a way that it starts on the snare, like so. can hear that it's only affecting the, well, affected part. So finally, you get this chance knob. So basically, if you turn it down maybe to, I don't know, 50%, it means that basically 1 in every 2 times the effect is not working. Also, you can trigger the effect manually. So if you maybe select a chance value of 0 and then press this button, it instantly activates the effect, and that's pretty much it. The last couple of things that we're going to have a look at are pitch, pitch decay, and decay. So with pitch, you can select values between 0 and -12. And as you turn the knob up and semitones go down, you can see that the color changes. And that's pretty straightforward. Every repetition that happens after the original one basically gets shifted, in this case, -5, for example. If we turn this down, turn the pitch decay up, this is what happens. So instead of having all of the subsequent notes at the same value of -5, you get a gradual decline in pitch as the repetition goes on. And of course, you can decide how much it's going down by selecting the pitch value. So the very last thing is decay. So this is pretty much a volume decline. If you turn it up, you can see that the volume gets slimmer and slimmer right here. And this is pretty cool because I use it quite a lot. And so one thing that you might have picked up on is that this effect is quite static, meaning that once you set it up, you're pretty much stuck with what you've done. You can't really change the settings. Well, you could actually do that by using automations, but it's not really that convenient or practical at all. You could also turn the variation knob up, but it's kind of random. You don't have really any control over it. And so what are we going to do to solve this problem? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let me show you. So the first thing that we need to do is select beat repeat and then press Command G or Control G, and it's going to group it into an audio effect rack. Then we click on this little button right here, and we can see that we have an audio chain. Now what we need to do is to create more audio chains, and in this case I'm just gonna press Command D or Control D on our Windows, and this will duplicate this particular chain with the beat repeats with the same settings. Let's do it 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. On the first chain, I'm just going to select it and I'm going to get rid of beat repeats so I can have a clean signal chain in which nothing happens. Now we need to go into chain mode, and if we click on this button, we have our chains and we have our different zones. So you have basically a selector, a chain selector over here, which will scan through the zones, and each zone should have its own chain. And the way we do this is, first of all, I'm gonna go into large visualization because I can't see for nothing, and we're gonna start dragging these into different ranges. If I can manage to do so, there you go. Now if I click on distribute ranges equally, it should work. It should work, but it doesn't. It never does. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, guys. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments box below. But we're gonna do it by hand because I can't seem to, make it work for the life of me. But anyway, now you can see that each zone has its own chain, and so if we scan through the zones, each chain is selected. So then we need to click on the macro buttons, and then we press map. We click on the chain selector and we press on the map button. So now, as we can see here in the macro mapping pane, we have a chain selector mapped on macro number 1. We need to change this value here because if we don't do that, this is what happens. If we select a value of 87, we're never gonna hear anything because there's no chain on the range of 87. So if we click on map again and we go into the max tab and we set the maximum volume to 8, we can close this back, click on this, and now the chain selector macro goes only from 0 to 8. We can get rid of all of these other macros, we don't need them. Now, what's gonna happen on chain selector number 0? Nothing's gonna happen, because when you have 0 as a value, you have chain number 1, which is completely clean. What happens though if we go into chain number 1? Well, this gets selected. If we go into chain number 2, this gets selected, and so forth and so on. Well, now this chain is the same as this chain, that is the same as this chain, and whatnot. But now if we completely change the values of each chain, we have different effects for each chain. I've been saying chain quite a lot, but let me just show you very quickly what I mean by this. And so as you can see, each value has a different repetition. Also, if you have one of these, you can just map it to whatever knob you have on your MIDI controller. You can do like sort of a live performance. You can just keep the drum clip running, and then you can move the knob up and down and decide at which point of the song you want a different fill or variation. Yeah, you can do pretty much whatever you want. If you copy this into arrangement a couple of times, for example, you can basically just select the chain selector. Let's press B to get the pencil, and then we just go into 1-bar grid, and you can just draw some different variations like so. Let's see what it sounds like this. Cool. Anyway, for your convenience, I actually created a preset out of this very thing that I'm showing you today, and it's called beatrepeat battery, and you can find it in the Patreon that is linked in the description box. As you can see, if we click on this, it's a very simple preset. It only has one knob, but I did put some more care into making these particular effects right here. In fact, as you can hear, they sound a bit nicer. Right, so this is the way to stack beat repeats vertically, basically. So you actually use them in parallel. So you have a battery of beat repeats. You have up to whatever, 32, 64, 128, as many as your computer's CPU will allow you to do, and you just select them with a chain selector. But what if we want to stack them horizontally, so not longer in parallel but in series? We can do that. And why will we do that though? Well, maybe I want a beat repeat on the very first part of the drum loop, and then I want a beat repeat on the second part of the drum loop. So during the course of one drum loop iteration, you will get effect on the very first part and effect on the very last part. And this is what I'm going to show you next, fortunately. So let's just have a look at it. So as I said, I do have this preset called beatrepeat battery, but I also have, and again, yeah, you can download this from the Patreon, I have a beatrepeat battery 2X. You have two chains, one for the end and one for the start. So if we go and have a look at the BR battery and chain, as you can see, all of these basically happens in the second half of the drum beat. The interval is always fixed to 1 bar. I decided to keep it simple for these presets, but as you can see, all of these repetitions happen in the second half of the beat. On the other hand, with BR battery starts, all the repetitions actually happen in the very first half of the drum loop. Then I basically chain mapped these to chain selector of battery end, and then I chain mapped these to chain selector of battery start. And then I mapped this knob to this and this knob to this. And of course the values are from 0 to 7 because I only have 7 instances of them. And so the cool thing now about this is that not only you can select whichever one you like and get to have some fine tuning over it, but you can also just press the random button and just mess around and see what it sounds like. So that's pretty cool, but why should I stop here? In fact, there's really no limit to what you can do in terms of stacking beat repeats vertically and horizontally. In fact, I went further down the rabbit hole and I created beat repeat battery 3x. And the way this is structured is that you have a end section, a middle section, and then a start section, like so. The one thing that I added to this particular preset is I also added a delay. It's not just a simple delay. I created just a clean chain and then a wet chain. The wet chain basically has an auto filter and a grain delay set all the way up to wet. Basically, this particular knob that I mapped is not mapped to the volume of this particular chain, but is actually mapped to the utilities gain. So as you turn the send up, it works basically as a send effect. But let me just show you what it does on its own, because it's simpler. It's easier to understand. So I used a very short delay and that kind of adds to the kind of repeatiness of the whole thing. So if we press on random, so this is starting to sound quite interesting at this point, is it? But wait, there's more. In fact, I actually created even one more preset called Beat Repeat Mayhem, which is basically beat repeat 1, beat repeat 2, beat repeat 3 all together. And so this is pretty much an absolute monster. And at this point, basically, whatever you run through this is gonna get completely mangled. Woo boy! And of course, you can use this on pretty much whatever you want. If we insert another audio track and maybe get some, I don't know, some vocals from my favorite sound pack, Jungle Jungle.
Tick, 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 tick. Cool down the dance hall. Cool down the dance hall.
Even pads, let's get a simpler up, and then let's go into big umami bombs. which is my sound pack that you can find either on my website or on my Patreon. Once again, you find the links below, and let's select some pads. Alright, maybe so this is not going to turn you into FX Twin or Square Pusher, but then again, what is? But anyway, hopefully this is a nice method to have a bit more control over beat repeats and its variations, and it will give you some more control definitely in the arrangement, and you can mix and match and decide which particular repetition is going where in the song. Or in the case of Beat Repeat 3X and Beat Repeat Mayhem, it will give you some cool sound designs to play with. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and all that stuff. Of course, you can make your own Beat Repeat batteries by just following the tutorial. You don't have to download anything or give me any manual, whatever. But all of those presets, of course, as well as the sample packs, are included in the Patreon that you can find in the description box below. And that's pretty much it for today. See you later, yeah? Bye bye.